Don't miss a second, the final dance turns everything you think you know on its head. Watch until the end for a choice that remakes a summer into a forever. Chapter 1, The Road to Silver Pines. The summer Mara Caldwell turned 19, her parents drove through a corridor of pines so tall they stitched the sky into shade. Silver Pines Lodge was the kind of lakeside retreat where linen skirts floated at supper and the orchestra hummed old standards no one admitted they knew by heart. Mara's father, Dr. Caldwell, to almost everyone, had been invited as an honored guest. Her mother had packed novels she never finished. Mara brought a notebook, clean and daring, to catch whatever the season might dare her to feel. The days were rehearsed, archery, lessons on etiquette that arrived dressed as waltzes, and awkward mingling on manicured lawns. But after dark, the lodge changed its shoes. There were knocks between staff cabins, laughter that ran like a river, and a bass line that leaked through the trees. Mara heard it on her second night, the sound of drums that did not ask permission. Curiosity is a kind of hunger no one can feed for you. When the moon was a thin coin above the lake, Mara followed the music to a maintenance hall behind the tennis courts. Inside, the staff had transformed the room into a pulse, hips laughing, arms drawing invisible calligraphy, bodies speaking the only language built for heat. She saw him then. Cole Rivera moved as if every muscle remembered a promise he had made to himself. He was the lodge's lead instructor by day, but here he was elemental. His partner, a willowy girl named Tessa, matched him like lightning twins. Watching them, Mara felt an ache she recognized, a wish to belong to a moment before it passed. Chapter 2, Terms of a Dance. By morning, the lodge wore its respectable face again, but the music stayed in Mara's bones. She signed up for a group class with the dull certainty of someone hiding a bright hunger. Cole demonstrated the foxtrot with immaculate patience, his voice steady, his gaze somewhere in the middle distance where an old hurt might sit if allowed. When he reached Mara, his hand hovered near her shoulder blade like a question. "You're counting too much," he said softly, and she flushed. "Try listening." The class ended with polite applause. Life might have circled back to its routine if not for the notice tacked behind the staff bar. Tessa had to leave, family emergency, immediate departure. The big exhibition across the lake, the one that paid well and kept the dance program afloat for another year, was suddenly a cliff with no bridge. That night, the maintenance hall felt less like a celebration and more like a plea. Cole argued with the manager, who kept smoothing his tie as if he could iron reality. Mara saw the math of worry in their faces. She stepped forward because sometimes the smallest step is the one that changes everything. "I can learn," she said. The room tilted, then steadied. Cole's eyes held a flicker of refusal, then a calculating spark. "It's in 6 days," he said. "It's not a game." "I know it isn't." Her voice did not tremble. A woman knows when fear is just the seam of courage. He gave her a test, a box step, a turn that demanded trust, a rhythm that slipped left when her brain went right. She stumbled, corrected herself, listened. At the end, he nodded once. "Tomorrow at 7, he said. "If you're late, I'll know what you meant." Chapter 3, The 3 Measures That Matter. They trained in places that learned her footsteps by heart, the laundry room when the dryers slept, the dock when fog still owned the lake, the staff hall with its floor scuffed to a kind of forgiveness. Cole broke the music into pieces she could hold. Timing. Frame. Breath, he said. Everything else is decoration. He was rigorous and spare with praise. When it arrived, it was a lantern. He corrected her with patience that came from somewhere older than pride. She learned that a dancer's hands speak in sentences, that an audience will forgive any misstep if you keep your face brave, that breath is not just oxygen, but agreement with the moment. The closer they danced, the more Mara understood the biographies of bodies. Cole's palms were calloused from a childhood that asked more than it gave. His laughter, when it came, was surprised. He had grown up in a place that measured worth in shifts worked and rent paid on time, not in certificates on a wall. Mari had grown up in rooms where silence was a form of excellence. Their differences were a river, the dance became the bridge they built without negotiating every plank. Rumors swirled as rumors do, especially where linen meets sweat. Some guests whispered that the girl with the doctor father was slumming for sport. Others decided Cole was using her as a stopgap, a pretty distraction with a clock ticking over her head. A woman knows the burn of being misnamed. Mara let the gossip fall, she had steps to learn. Chapter 4, The Fault Line at the Dinner Table. On the fourth night, Mari returned late to find her parents waiting, the clock a stern witness on the mantel. Dr. Caldwell loved in a language of caution. He saw the world as a set of risks he could measure, arteries and choices both. "Where have you been?" he asked, and the question carried 1,000 other questions. Mara told the truth in pieces. She said there was an exhibition, that she was filling in, that it meant something more than waltzing around a ballroom for compliments. Her mother's eyes softened with reluctant wonder. Dr. Caldwell's tightened into fear he mistook for anger. "That's not your world," he said. "Men in any era have been fooled into believing worlds are assigned like birth certificates." "It is if I choose it," Mara replied, and there it was, the fault line. She left the room without slamming the door, but the air shook anyway. Outside, she found Cole sitting on the steps behind the hall, hands clasped as if he were praying or assembling a thought. She told him what had been said and what she had said back. He let her finish without interruption, a kind of respect that felt as rare as it was necessary. "Then we make it worth it," he said. "If you're going to defy your father, let it be for something true." They rehearsed until fear melted into muscle memory. When she stumbled, he steadied. When he rushed, she anchored. They became less two and more one, not in a way that erased them, but in a way that made each more vivid. Chapter 5, Across the Lake. The other lodge looked like a promise made of glass. The ballroom's chandeliers were so bright they seemed to ask every person to account for their shine. Mara's dress was a field of dusk. Cole's jacket carried the quiet swagger of someone who had earned muscle from labor, not leisure. Backstage, Mara's breath went shallow, a tide pulling out too far. Cole touched the center of her back, that compass point dancers know. "Timing, frame, breath," he said, a reminder and a blessing. The orchestra struck the first measure. They walked into the light together. The opening was simple by design, steps that declared intention without boasting. Then the music opened its throat, and they followed. Mara felt the room as vibration before she saw it as faces. She knew the precise weight of her own body and the geometry of Cole's hands. There was a turn they had missed every other time, an inside spin that had always been a fraction late. On stage, it landed true. The audience made a small sound, the sound people make when something right happens right in front of them. In the last sequence, Mara chose, just a breath's length, to meet Cole's eyes. It was a decision, a petition, and an answer. They finished not with a trick, but with a truth, stillness earned by motion, two bodies deciding when to be quiet together. The room stood. Applause unfolded like wings. They didn't kiss on stage. That would have been another story's payment. They bowed, hands barely touching, the space between them humming with everything said and unsaid. Backstage, Mara laughed the kind of laugh that only arrives when fear has been converted into flight. Cole's grin was rare weather bright. They had done it, and the word it meant more than a performance. Chapter 6, What Fathers Learn. News travels fast in places designed for leisure. By the time Mara returned to Silver Pines, the lodge seemed to lean in. Dr. Caldwell stood on the veranda, hands in his pockets, a man who had rehearsed a speech and found it inadequate. A woman can see when a man has been humbled by love. He told Mara he had followed at a distance, that he had stood at the edge of the ballroom and watched without announcing himself. He admitted he had mistaken caution for care, fear for wisdom. He said he did not understand everything he had seen, how could he, when his days were measured in charts and charts alone, but that he recognized truth when it held a room. He asked to speak to Cole. They met by the lake, waves making careful suggestions at their feet. Dr. Caldwell apologized in a voice that carried the weight of years spent deciding who was allowed to be brave. He asked what Cole wanted, truly wanted. Cole said he wanted to teach without being treated like a pleasant diversion, to choreograph pieces that said something about endurance and hope, to be seen without being inspected. He said Mara deserved a summer she would remember for her own reasons, not his. No one was absolved entirely. That's not how life pays out. But something softened. The next time Mara passed the staff hall, the manager gave her a nod shaped like respect. The gossip quieted not because it lost interest, but because the performance had spoken louder than rumor. Chapter 7, The Last Night at the Lake. Summer is a contract with an expiration date, and their last week became a series of tender farewells to places that had learned their sweat, the dock at dawn, the quiet hallway of brooms and miracles, the patch of grass where she had once divided herself between obedience and desire. The lodge prepared its closing ceremonies with predictable grandeur. Guests packed trunks with souvenirs, as if the lake would forget them otherwise. For the final dance, Cole choreographed something that did not apologize for being joyful. The staff spilled onto the floor first, then the guests, then the few brave souls who needed only a beat to feel at home. Mara danced at the center with a steadiness she did not possess in June. She passed from partner to partner, a conversation of movement, until Cole found her again. They executed the phrases that had become their shared alphabet: pivot, draw, breath, writing their names on the season's last open page. Afterward, near the water, they talked the way people do who know that time is generous only when you refuse to hoard it. He had an offer to teach in the city come fall. She had classes of her own and a courage she intended to use like a passport. They did not promise forever, they promised to choose when choice arrived. Some loves are a home, some are a compass. The wisest are both. As they said goodnight, the lodge orchestra played a standard that sounded different to those who'd changed. Mara held the moment close and then let it go, learning that love, like dance, rewards those who keep their eyes open on the turn. When the car pulled away the next morning, the pines kept their counsel. Mara watched the water until it became a ribbon in the mirror, thinking of timing, frame, breath, how a life is measured not in the steps you are given, but in the ones you dare to learn. Cole stayed on the dock a while longer, hands in his pockets, smiling at the thought of a stage he had not yet seen and a partner who had taught him that being met in the middle is not a compromise but a celebration. Silver Pines fell quiet until the next summer would ask its own questions. What remained were the steps two people had made inside a very brief forever, proof that when music finds you unafraid, you can become the person you meant to be all along. If this story moved you, please subscribe to the channel, activate notifications so you don't miss new tales, give the video a like, leave a comment with your favorite moment, and share it with someone who loves a good dance.